He was a Korean billionaire, mid-collapse at his own wedding, and the woman who dropped him wasn't the bride, it was the cleaner holding a single piece of paper. This isn't a simple scandal, it's a DNA grenade, and when it detonated in front of 500 guests, it shattered a fortune, a family, and a man who discovered his entire life was built on a single, devastating lie. That woman is Maya Johnson. For 6 months, she cleaned the floors of the groom's corporate empire. The document in her hand is a paternity test, and the result it contains doesn't just question a marriage, it threatens to dismantle a $2 billion dynasty built on a single, meticulously maintained fiction. This is the story of how a secret, buried for 34 years, finally walked down the aisle. 4 months before the collapse, Maya Johnson started her night shift at the Kim Tower in Seoul. 34 from Memphis, with a biology degree and a debt that chased her across an ocean, she saw the building as a fortress of glass and steel. She didn't know she was walking into a vault of family secrets. Her domain was the 61st floor, the executive suites. The air smelled of lemon polish and old money. Her supervisor, a stern woman named Mrs. Cho, gave her one rule. The West Corridor office, the one with the double mahogany doors, you clean at 10 p.m. sharp. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. The occupant is never there. That office belonged to Kang Yi-hyun, heir to Kim Chemical, a $2 billion empire built by his father, Kang Min-ho, who died of a heart attack 2 years prior. Yi-hyun was 38, a figure in the financial pages, and in 6 months he would marry Choi Soo-jin, the daughter of a rival conglomerate's chairman. It wasn't a romance. It was a merger, and Maya's job was to make sure the desk he never used was spotless. The first week was routine, empty espresso cups, Korean financial reports, blueprints for a new factory in Vietnam. The second week she noticed the safe, a small antique wall safe behind a framed portrait of the company's first plant. It was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness. Inside she saw a single fat manila folder. She closed it, her grandmother's voice in her head. Don't touch what isn't yours. But the following Tuesday the safe was open again, and a document had slipped out resting on the plush carpet, a medical report, dated March 15, 1989. Patient, Kang Min-ho, diagnosis, azoospermia, complete absence of sperm. The conclusion was one line: biological paternity of any offspring is impossible. Maya stood in the silent office, the hum of the city 61 stories below. Kang Min-ho was Yi-hyun's father. But this document, signed by a now-deceased fertility specialist, said he couldn't be. She took a picture with her phone, a reflex, a mistake. That night she couldn't sleep. She Googled azoospermia. She read about secret adoptions, sperm donors' affairs. She looked at the date. Yi-hyun was born in November 1989, 8 months after that report. The math was a door swinging open into a dark room. She told herself to forget it. It was a rich man's problem. But then she saw the wedding announcement. In the Korea Times, the photo of Yi-hyun and Soo-jin, the headline called it the union of two dynasties. It quoted the Choi family lawyer. This marriage secures the Kang bloodline's control of the trust for the next generation. The bloodline, the word pulsed on the screen. A lie signed and dated was about to be cemented into law. Maya's next shift, she looked for more. The safe was locked, but the trash can by the shredder held torn fragments. She pieced them together like a puzzle on the floor of the custodial closet. They were bank statements from a Swiss account, monthly payments starting in 1990 to a woman named Lee Hai-rai. The last payment was 3 months after Min-ho's death. Then they stopped. She searched the name, Lee Hai-rai, a former nurse at the Seoul Family Fertility Center, which closed in 1992. She found an old address in a working-class neighborhood called Gyeorogu. The apartment building was still there. Maya went on her day off. She said she was a former student doing a genealogy project. The elderly neighbor remembered. Hai-rai, she moved to Busan years ago. She never married, but she had a child, a son. She raised him alone, worked 2 jobs. She was very private. The son, he's successful, a doctor, I think. The neighbor couldn't remember the name, but she remembered the year Hai-rai left Seoul, 1990, the same year the payments started. Maya connected the dots. A nurse from the fertility clinic, a diagnosis of impossibility, a secret payment stream that lasted 28 years. The shape of the truth was now clear. Kang Min-ho knew. He knew he wasn't the biological father. He paid the nurse for her silence and for her child. Yi-hyun was that child. And the entire Kim chemical empire, every share in the trust, was about to pass to a man with no genetic claim to it. But without the biological father's identity, it was just a theory. She needed the second half of the equation. She went back to the office, her heart a drum. She waited until the floor was empty. She used a paperclip to pick the simple lock on the filing cabinet behind the desk. It was a risk that would get her deported. Inside, she found the past, Min-ho's personal files. And there, clipped to a private investigator's report from 2005, was a photo. A man in his 40s, smiling, holding a medical degree, Dr. Park Jae-hoon, a prominent cardiologist. The report was brief. Subject confirmed as donor at Seoul Family Fertility Center, cycle number 407, March 1989. Donor agreement was anonymous. Subject unaware of any resulting offspring. Recommendation: maintain distance. No further action. Maya stared at the photo. The resemblance was subtle but undeniable. The same jawline as Yi Hyan. The same slight tilt of the head. Dr. Park Jae-hoon was the biological father, and he was alive, practicing medicine in Seoul, utterly unaware that his biological son was about to inherit one of Korea's largest fortunes under false name. She had the entire story, the inferno, and she had three choices. She could walk away, she could send an anonymous letter, or she could light the match herself. But then, the following Monday, Mrs. Cho called her into the supply room. Her visa paperwork had a discrepancy. It was being reviewed. She had 2 weeks to provide additional documents or her contract would be terminated. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone had flagged her file. The system, it seemed, was starting to sense a threat. That night, as she polished the mahogany desk, she saw her own reflection. A cleaner in a gray uniform, invisible, holding a secret that could topple a kingdom. The wedding was in 72 hours, 500 guests, global press. The point of no return, she made her decision. She printed the medical report, the bank fragments, the investigator's photo. She folded them into a single envelope, and she requested the day off for the wedding of Kang Yi-hyan and Choi Soo-jin. She wasn't on the guest list, but she had a uniform, and in a venue with 200 staff, one more cleaner would never be noticed. She just had to get past the gatekeepers, walk down the aisle, and hand a billionaire the truth about his own blood. The Seojong Grand Ballroom held 500 of Korea's elite, a sea of silk and whispered deals. Maya moved through them like a ghost, the folded envelope a live wire in her hand. She had 90 seconds before the procession began, 90 seconds to end a dynasty. Her cleaning uniform was a camouflage. She carried a tray of empty champagne flutes, her eyes on the archway where Yi Hyan stood, adjusting his white tuxedo, laughing at something his best man said. He looked like a man who owned the world. He had no idea he was standing on a fault line. She maneuvered past a group of diplomats, her heart hammering against her ribs. 10 steps. 5. She reached him just as the string quartet began the opening notes of the processional. The room hushed, turning toward the grand doors where the bride would appear. Yi Hyan turned, expecting a waiter. He saw a woman in a gray uniform holding out a plain envelope. His smile didn't falter. It was a reflex of privilege. "Not now," he said in Korean, waving her away. Maya didn't move. She spoke in clear, quiet English. "This is from your father, the one who couldn't have children." The words landed like a physical blow. His face went blank, then confused. He took the envelope. A murmur rippled through the front rows. The mother of the bride, Choi Soo-jin's mother, leaned forward, her smile rigid. Yi Hyan opened the flap. He pulled out the first page, the medical report. His eyes scanned the header, the date, the diagnosis. His breath hitched. He looked at the second page, the pieced-together bank statements, the name Lee Hai-rai, then the photo, Dr. Park Jae-hoon. He stared at the face, his own features echoing back at him from the paper. The color drained from his face. He looked up at Maya, his eyes wide with a primal, disorienting horror. "What is this?" His voice was a scrape. "The truth," Maya said. "Your father, Kang Min-ho, knew. He paid your biological mother for you. The man in that photo is your biological father. The trust, the company, it was never yours by blood." The music swelled. The grand doors at the back of the hall began to open. The bride, resplendent in white, took her first step down the aisle. All eyes were on her, except Yi Hyan's. He was staring into the abyss, his legs buckled, not a feint, but a total systems failure. He fell backward, a dead weight. 2 groomsmen lunged, catching him under the arms before his head hit the marble. The champagne flute he'd been holding shattered. The sound was a gunshot in the silent room. The music stopped. A collective gasp. The bride froze halfway down the aisle, her smile dissolving into confusion. Yi Hyan's mother, the formidable Kang Hee-won, was out of her seat. "Yi Hyan, what's wrong?" She saw the papers scattered on the floor. She saw the photo. She bent, picking it up. Her hand flew to her mouth. She knew, of course she knew. The The secret she and her husband had buried for 34 years was now lying on a wedding aisle floor. Chaos erupted, guests stood. Phones came out, security surged forward. Maya didn't run. She stood her ground, the calm center of the storm. A security guard grabbed her arm. "You come with me." But Kang Hee-won's voice cut through the noise. A blade. "Stop, bring her to the groom's suite. Now." They were hustled through a side door, away from the flashing lights and the screaming bride. The wedding was over. In the opulent suite, Yi Hyun was laid on a couch, a doctor from the guests checking his pulse. He was conscious, staring at the ceiling, silent. His mother stood by the window, the damning documents in her shaking hands. She turned to Maya. "Who are you?" "Maya Johnson. I clean the 61st floor. And you thought it was your place to do this, to destroy my son today?" "The truth was going to destroy him eventually," Maya said, her voice steady. "I just gave it to him before he committed fraud by marrying her." Hee-won's eyes narrowed. "Fraud. The marriage secures the bloodline trust, but there is no bloodline, that's fraud, and you've known since the beginning." The door burst open. Choi Soo-jin entered, her veil torn, her face a mask of fury. "What is happening? What did this woman do?" Yi Hyun finally spoke, his voice hollow. "She told me I'm not a Kang." Soo-jin laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. "Don't be absurd. This is a stunt. A jealous ex-girlfriend. Security, remove her." "It's not a stunt," Hee-won said quietly, all the fight gone from her. She handed the medical report to Soo-jin. "My husband was infertile. We used a donor. We never told Yi Hyun. We bought the child from the nurse. We built our lives on it." The room went cold. Soo-jin read the report. Her future, her family's ambitions, dissolved in clinical language. She looked at Yi Hyun with new eyes, not as a husband, but as a fraud, a liability. "The merger is off," she said, her voice cold. She turned and left, the door slamming behind her. The first domino had fallen, but it was just the beginning. Within the hour, the board of Kim Chemical was notified. Emergency meeting. The trust documents were pulled. The clause was explicit. Control passed to lawful male issue of the body of Kang Min-ho. Legal interpretation of body would now decide a $2 billion fate. The family's lawyers descended on the suite. Their first question was for Maya. "How did you obtain these documents? This is corporate espionage, theft." The safe was open. The files were in the trash. "I didn't steal, I found." "You photographed private medical records. You invaded a locked cabinet. You have broken half a dozen privacy and labor laws. You will be detained, and your visa will be revoked. You will face charges." This was the retaliation she expected, but then Yi Hyun sat up. He looked at Maya, really looked at her for the first time, not with anger, but with a desperate, bewildered need. Why would you do this? You could have gone to the press. You could have blackmailed us. Why throw it in my face at my wedding?" Maya met his gaze. "Because anonymous letters get buried by lawyers, because blackmail lets the lie continue. This way it's over, for everyone, no more secrets." Hee-won interjected, her mind already on damage control. "We will say it is a forgery, a malicious attack by a rival company. We will discredit the documents and you can try," Maya said. "But the nurse, Lee Hai-rai, is alive. The donor, Dr. Park Jae-hoon, is alive, and I have already sent copies of everything to a secure server. If I am arrested or if I disappear, it publishes to every major news outlet in Seoul." It was a bluff, but it worked. The lawyers paled. The situation was no longer containable. It was a race. The family had to get to the biological parents first, to control the narrative. Yi Hyun stood, his legs still unsteady. He pointed a finger at Maya. You come with me right now." "Where?" "To meet my mother." He wasn't talking about Hee-won. He was talking about Lee Hai-rai, the woman who gave him away. The night became a frantic chase across Seoul. In a black sedan with a family lawyer and a stunned Maya in the back, Yi Hin called his private investigator. "Find Lee Hai-rai in Busan. Address, phone, everything. And find Dr. Park Jae-hoon's private number. Now." The investigator, used to discreet corporate work, was now on a paternity manhunt. He called back in 20 minutes. Lee Hai-rai was not in Busan. She was in Seoul. She had checked into a modest hotel near the wedding venue 2 days ago. She had come to watch. The revelation was staggering. Yi Hyun's biological mother had been in the city, perhaps even in the crowd, when her son collapsed. Why? The car changed direction. They arrived at the hotel, a mid-tier business place. Yi Hyun, still in his disheveled wedding tuxedo, looked like a madman. They knocked on room 412. The door opened. A woman in her late 60s with kind, tired eyes stood there. She saw Yi Hyun, her breath caught. She didn't need an introduction. She had been looking at his face in newspaper clippings for 34 years. "You came," she said softly. "I was hoping you would." The room was small, neat. On the bedside table was a photo of a young boy, Yi Hyan as a child, a picture she must have secretly obtained. Lee Hai-rai told her story. She was a nurse at the clinic. Kang Min-ho and Hee-won were desperate, ashamed. When the donor procedure succeeded, Min-ho offered her a choice: a one-time payment to say nothing, or a lifetime of support if she gave the child to them completely, severed all ties. She was poor, she was unmarried. She chose the lifetime of support, believing it would give her son a better life. The monthly payments were her secret penance. She watched from afar, never interfering. She knew about the wedding. She just wanted to see him happy just once before she died. Yi Hyan listened, weeping silent tears of rage and grief. "You sold me. I gave you a life I could never give you," she whispered. "Do you have any idea what you cost me?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Everything. I am nothing. I have no name." Back in the car, the lawyer's phone rang. It was the board. The news had leaked. A grainy video of Yi Hyan's collapse was trending. The hashtag was wedding collapse. The speculation was wild. The board's directive was immediate. Yi Hyan was to step aside from all operational roles, pending a DNA verification and legal review. He was now a placeholder, a figurehead with a question mark where his lineage should be. He looked at Maya, who had witnessed his entire world dismantle. "Are you satisfied?" "No," Maya said, surprising herself. "I thought I would be, but you're just a person. Your whole life was a contract." The car pulled up to a modern apartment building in Gangnam, Dr. Park Jae-hoon's residence. It was 3 a.m. They buzzed his penthouse. A confused, sleepy voice answered. "Who is it?" "It's about a donation you made in March 1989 at the Seoul Family Fertility Center." There was a long silence. Then the lock released. Dr. Park, a distinguished man in a robe, opened his door. He saw Yi Hyan. He saw the ghost of his own younger self in the man's devastated face. He understood instantly. He sank into a chair. "I was a medical student," he said without prompting. "They paid well for donors with high academic scores. It was anonymous. I needed the money. I never imagined I would see the result." He asked for proof. Maya showed him the investigator's report with his donor number. He asked Yi Hyan for a DNA test. A swab right there in the kitchen. It would take days for official results, but the circumstantial evidence was a mountain. Dr. Park, a man with a family of his own, a reputation, looked sick. "What do you want from me?" Yi Hyan had no answer. He didn't know what he wanted anymore, but the lawyer did. A public statement, acknowledging the donation but supporting Yi Hyan's position as the raised heir. "We need to control the story." Dr. Park shook his head. "I will not lie. If this is true, it is a medical and ethical scandal. My clinic, my career." As they argued, Maya's phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. It was a photo of her visa cancellation notice, time-stamped for 9 a.m. that morning. The text below read, "Leave the country quietly or face theft and trespassing charges, your choice." The system was closing its fist around her. She showed it to Yi Hyan. He stared at it, then at her. Two people whose lives had been obliterated by the same secret. The lawyer saw an opportunity. "We can make this go away for you," he said to Maya. "We can fix the visa. We can give you a settlement in exchange for your silence and for your testimony that you found the documents but were mistaken about their significance." It was the offer, the buy-off, the way the rich always smoothed over the cracks. Maya looked at Yi Hyan. "Is that what you want, to buy another lie?" Yi Hyan didn't answer. He was looking at Dr. Park, his biological father, a stranger. He was looking at the ruins of his future. The sun was beginning to rise over Seoul, casting a cold grey light on the city. The wedding was 12 hours in the past. The empire was in limbo. And in a penthouse kitchen, a billionaire, a doctor, a cleaner, and a lawyer stood in a silent standoff, each holding a piece of the truth, each waiting to see who would break first. Lawyer's buy-off hung in the air, but Yi Hyan wasn't listening. He was staring at Dr. Park. "You have a family," Yi Hyan stated. It wasn't a question. Dr. Park nodded, wary. "A son." Yi Hyan's next words changed everything. "How old is he?" Dr. Park hesitated. "He is 32. The math was cruel and instant. Dr. Park's legitimate son was older than Yi Hyan, which meant the doctor had donated sperm as a student while already in a relationship, maybe even engaged. A secret from his own family. Yi Hyan, the hidden first son, was now a threat to the second son's inheritance and peace. "Does he know?" Yi Hyan asked. "Of course not," Dr. Park said, his voice strained. "And he cannot. It would destroy my marriage, my life." Yi Hyan let out a sound that was part laugh, part sob. "So we all have something to lose, my name, your family, her visa." He pointed at Maya. "We're all hostages to this." The family lawyer saw an opening. Precisely. A mutual assured destruction. We keep this quiet, we all walk away. We can structure a private settlement for you, Yi Hyan, from the family's personal funds. The company trust remains intact, avoiding a shareholder panic. Dr. Park keeps his secret. Ms. Johnson gets a new life somewhere else. It's the cleanest solution. It was logical. It was how empires survived scandals, but Maya spoke up. And the nurse, Lee Hai-rai. Does she get a settlement too, or just another lifetime of silence? The lawyer dismissed her with a wave. She is already compensated. Yi Hyan's phone buzzed incessantly. He finally looked at it. Dozens of messages. One was from his mother, Hee-won. It read, "The board has called an emergency vote for 9 a.m. They are invoking Clause 17 of the trust." Yi Hyan's face went ashen. He showed the phone to the lawyer. "What is Clause 17? The lawyer swallowed. "It's a contingency. If the primary heir's legitimacy is challenged before the age of 40 and no direct biological issue exists, the trust's voting control temporarily reverts to a board-appointed custodian. It was meant for a scenario where an heir was incapacitated. They're using it to freeze you out." "Who's the custodian?" The lawyer's voice was quiet. "The board chairman, Choi Min-sik, Soo-jin's father. The wedding that didn't happen had just handed his enemy the keys to his company." The retaliation was not just personal, it was corporate warfare. The Choi family, humiliated at the altar, was now seizing operational control of Kim Chemical. Yi Hin stood up, a new raw energy replacing his despair. No, they don't get to do that. They don't get to take my father's company. "It's not your father's company if you're not his son," the lawyer said softly. Yi Hyan turned to Maya, his eyes blazing. "You wanted the truth? Fine, now help me use it. Not to destroy me, but to destroy them." The Choi family knew, they had to know. Maya was taken aback. "What? The due diligence for a merger that size? They would have done a full background check. They would have dug into my parents' medical history. My father's infertility, it wouldn't have been a secret from their investigators. They knew the risk. They married Soo-jin to me anyway because they planned to use Clause 17 all along. The wedding was the trigger. They were never after a merger. They were after a takeover." The conspiracy deepened, layers of betrayal folding in on themselves. Dr. Park stood up, looking ill. "This is beyond me. I want no part of this." "You're already a part of it," Yi Hyan said. "Your DNA is the evidence. I need a legal paternity test from you, voluntarily, to prove I'm not Min-ho's son." "And why would I do that? It ruins me." "Because if you don't," Yi Hyan said, his voice cold, "I will hold a press conference and name you as the donor. I will tell the world you abandoned your biological son for money. Your choice is, be part of a legal, private test or be the villain in a public scandal." It was brutal, effective. Dr. Park sagged in defeat. He agreed. The plan was insane. Yi Hyan would use the very truth that unmade him as a weapon. He would publicly admit he was not a Kang by blood, preempting the board's vote. He would then argue that the trust's clause was being weaponized by the Choi family, who had prior knowledge of the illegitimacy, constituting fraud and bad faith. It was a nuclear option. It would tank the company's stock. It might destroy it completely, but it would burn the Chois in the process. Maya was the key witness. She had found the documents. Her testimony about the open safe, the trash, the sequence of discovery was critical to proving there was no forgery, that the truth was hidden inside the company itself. The lawyer's earlier offer to her was now a threat. "If you testify for him," the lawyer told Maya, "you will be deported. The charges will stick. You will have no life to return to." Yi Hyan looked at her. "I can't protect you if I have no power, but if I win, if I somehow keep control, I will give you more than a settlement. I will give you a seat at the table, a job, security, a life here." It was another promise from a man built on lies, but the determination in his eyes was new. It was his own. Maya made her choice. She would testify, not for him, but for the truth she had unleashed. She would see it through. At 8 a.m., as the board members gathered in the Kim Chemical Tower, Yi Hyan's legal team filed an emergency injunction in Seoul's Central District Court, challenging the Clause 17 custodianship as an act of corporate bad faith, citing evidence of prior knowledge by the Choi family. The evidence was Maya's affidavit and the documents. The story exploded in the financial press. Kim Chemical stock plunged 20% in pre-market trading. At 8:45, Yi Hyan, Maya, Dr. Park, and their lawyers held a press conference in a hotel ballroom. Yi Hyan, still in his rumpled wedding clothes, stood at the podium. He confirmed everything. His voice never wavered. He showed his father's medical report. He introduced Dr. Park, who silently stood beside him, a living genetic mirror. He introduced Lee Hai-rai, who joined them, her face streaked with tears. and he pointed to Maya Johnson. The truth was found by an employee of this company, a cleaner. She had the courage to do what no one else would. She ended a lie that my family built and that another family sought to exploit. The questions were a frenzy. He announced he was voluntarily stepping aside from all executive roles until the courts decided the trust's fate, but he would fight the Choi family's custodianship to his last breath. It was a masterstroke of brutal transparency. The public, fascinated by the Shakespearean drama, swung in his favor. The narrative shifted from illegitimate heir to scion betrayed by two families. But the victory was short-lived. As they left the press conference, a process server approached Maya. He handed her a thick envelope, a lawsuit filed by Kang Hee-won. Claimed Maya had violated the Korean Personal Information Protection Act, the Trade Secret Act, and committed intentional infliction of emotional distress, seeking damages of $5 million. It was a vicious personal counterattack. Yi Hyun was furious. He called his mother. "Withdraw it now." Her voice was icy on the speakerphone. "No, you are choosing that woman over your own family. You are letting her destroy us. She will be a lesson to anyone else who thinks they can expose us." "You did this to us," he screamed. "You and father with your lies. We did it for you." The call ended. Maya was now personally in the crosshairs of a woman with endless resources and a bottomless capacity for vengeance. The lawyer explained the reality. Even if the lawsuit was frivolous, fighting it would take years and cost millions. Maya would be trapped in Korea, unable to work, her life in legal limbo. It was a gilded cage with bars made of lawsuits. That afternoon, in a small office, Dr. Park provided his official DNA sample to a court-appointed lab. As he left, he pulled Yi Hyun aside. "There is something else," he said, his conscience clearly eating at him. "At the clinic in 1989, the donations were not always anonymous by choice. The clinic director, he was flexible. For the right price, a donor could be selected for specific traits, intelligence, height, even blood type." Yi Hyun frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Kang Min-ho didn't just get a random donor. He picked me. He had my file, my academic records, my family medical history. He chose me, and he paid the director a separate fee to ensure my sample was used for his wife. It wasn't a standard procedure. It was a curated transaction." The revelation was staggering. Min-ho didn't just accept a random child. He shopped for one. He built his heir like a custom product. Yi Hyun wasn't just a secret. He was a purchase, a designed successor. The weight of it crushed the last remnant of his identity. He wasn't a mistake of nature. He was a business decision. Meanwhile, the Choi family struck back. They held their own press conference. Choi Min-sik, Soo-jin's father, presented a different story. He produced a document, a private investigator's report from 6 months prior, detailing Kang Min-ho's infertility. "We knew," Min-sik said, his face the picture of concerned betrayal. "We discovered this tragic secret. Out of respect for our dear friends, the Kangs, we agreed to keep it quiet. We believed Yi Hyun was a son in spirit, raised as a Kang. Our daughter loved him. We proceeded with the wedding to support the family, to provide stability. We are shocked and heartbroken that this secret was weaponized by a disgruntled employee on the very day of the wedding, causing this tragedy. Only goal now is to stabilize the company our two families built together." It was a brilliant, cynical rewrite of history. They framed themselves as compassionate allies and Maya as a malicious saboteur. The public narrative split into warring camps. The legal battles multiplied: trust law, corporate governance, privacy lawsuits, defamation suits. The company was now a battlefield. And in a cheap hostel, Maya watched the news, the lawsuit papers on her bed. She had no money for a lawyer. Her visa was cancelled. She was a pawn in a war of billionaires. Yi Hyun found her there that evening. He looked more drained than ever. "I'm sorry about the lawsuit. I will pay for your defense." "It doesn't matter," Maya said. "I lost the moment I picked up that paper. I just didn't know it." "You haven't lost," he said. Then he told her his new plan, a desperate final move. "The trust is based on a lie, but the company, the factories, the employees, the work, that's real. I'm going to sue to have the entire Kang family trust dissolved, to have the assets converted into a public foundation with no family control. I will give it all away." Maya stared at him. "You'd walk away from $2 billion. It was never mine to walk away from," he said, and for the first time he seemed at peace with the fact. "But to do it, I need irrefutable proof of the original fraud, not just the medical report, proof of the curated donation, proof the Chois knew everything." He needed her to go back into the lion's den, the 61st floor, to find the one piece of evidence that tied it all together, the receipt for the payment to the clinic director, the final smoking gun, The sun was setting again. The second day of the scandal was closing. The war for the truth had just begun, and its final battle would be fought not in a boardroom or a courtroom, but in the one place where it all started, the office with the mahogany doors and the antique safe. Maya looked at Yi Hyun, then at the city skyline. She nodded. She would go back. At 2 a.m., Maya used her old key card to enter the Kim Tower. The 61st floor was dark, haunted by the ghost of a future that never was. Her target wasn't the safe this time. It was the accounting server, and the one invoice Kang Min-ho never meant anyone to see. The security system had been changed, but the back door for the night cleaning crew, a simple override code, was still the same. Mrs. Cho had never thought to cancel it. The office was as she left it, but the portrait hiding the safe had been removed. The safe was gone, the room had been sanitized, but they had missed one thing. The wireless printer in the corner, connected to the company's internal network, had a memory cache. It stored every document it ever printed. Maya, with her biology degree and a knack for systems she'd learned fixing hospital equipment back in Memphis, accessed the admin menu. She scrolled through the log. Thousands of entries. She filtered by date range, March 1989, and there it was. A single print job sent from Kang Min-ho's private desktop. File name, clinic fee invoice. She printed it again. The machine hummed. A single sheet slid out. It was a receipt from the Seoul Family Fertility Center. Itemized, procedure, donor selection, and specific genetic matching. Fee 50 million won, a fortune at the time. Payable to the clinic director, Dr. Kim. At the bottom, a handwritten note from Min-ho. Ensure donor Park Jae-hoon, no records. It was the curated purchase, the smoking gun. As she folded it, the office door opened. The lights flicked on. It was not security. It was Kang Hee-won. She stood there, elegant in a night robe, her face a mask of cold fury. I knew you would come back. Thieves always return to the scene. Maya didn't flinch. She held up the invoice. I'm not a thief. I'm a witness. And this is the evidence that ends it. Hee-won's eyes flickered to the paper. She didn't deny it. She seemed almost relieved. My husband wanted a legacy, a perfect heir. He couldn't give me one, so he bought one. He thought he was building a masterpiece. He built a house of cards. And you helped him, Maya said. I loved him, Hee-won replied, her voice breaking for the first time. And I was afraid, so yes, I helped him lie to everyone, especially to my son. She called off the guards waiting in the hall. She told them to leave. Then she sat in her husband's chair, looking suddenly old. Take it, do what you must. The lie is too heavy to carry anymore. The next morning, Yi Hyun filed the invoice with the court. The impact was immediate. The judge in the trust case saw it for what it was, conclusive proof of intentional fraud at the foundation of the Kang family wealth. The Choi family's claim of benevolent knowledge collapsed. They couldn't claim to be protecting a legacy when the legacy itself was a fabricated product. Within a week, a settlement was reached, avoiding a protracted public trial that would have obliterated the company's value. The Kang family trust was dissolved. Its assets, comprising 51% of Kim Chemical, were transferred into a newly formed public foundation, the Min-ho Foundation for Industrial Innovation. The foundation's board would be independent, with no family members. The company would remain operational, saving thousands of jobs, but the family's control was irrevocably broken. The Choi family withdrew their custodianship claim in exchange for a face-saving statement and a non-compete agreement. They slunk away, their reputation damaged, but their own empire intact. Kang Hee-won retired to family property in Jeju, cutting off all contact with the business world. The lawsuit against Maya was dropped. Yi Hyun, as his last act as interim CEO, used his authority to formally sponsor Maya's new visa under special skilled worker category, citing her role in uncovering corporate fraud. She was given a position she created herself, Director of Ethical Compliance for the new foundation. Her first task was to audit the company's historical records. Dr. Park Jae-hoon's family found out. His wife discovered the news online. It led to a separation, but not a divorce. They entered counseling. His son, the 32-year-old, requested a meeting with Yi Hyun. They met in a neutral cafe. The younger man was angry, confused, but curious. They shared no warm, brotherly moment. They were strangers bound by an uncomfortable biological truth. They agreed to have a relationship, if any, only after family therapists suggested it. It was a wound that would take years to heal. Lee Hai-rai was given a formal apology and a settlement from Yi Hyun's personal funds, not as payment for her son, but as acknowledgement of her silenced life. She moved into a small apartment in Seoul. Yi Hyan visited her once a month. It was awkward, painful, but he went. He called her Mother Hairai. She called him Yi Hyan. It was a start, and Yi Hyan, he walked away from it all. He took only the personal assets in his own name, a sum that left him wealthy but not a billionaire. He bought a small architecture firm, a passion he'd abandoned to run the chemical empire. He started designing sustainable housing. For the first time in his life, he was building something that carried his own name, not one he'd inherited under false pretenses. The public followed the saga to its end. The cleaner who toppled a dynasty became a brief symbol of speaking truth to power. Then the news cycle moved on. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Maya was in her new office, a modest space with a view not of the Han River, but of a smaller, quieter street. There was a knock on her door. It was Yi Hyan. He held 2 paper cups of coffee. "Director Johnson," he said with a faint smile, "I come bearing a peace offering and a question." She motioned for him to sit. He handed her a coffee. "The question is, why did you stay? You could have taken the money and left Korea. You have a job here, but it's in the shadow of the thing you destroyed. It can't be easy." Maya took a sip. "I stayed because I realized I wasn't just cleaning up a secret. I was cleaning up a mess, and my job wasn't finished. This foundation, it's a chance to prevent the next mess, to build something transparent." He nodded. "My father would have hated it, and that's how I know it's right." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then he said, "There's one more piece of the puzzle, something my mother told me the day she left for Jeju." He pulled out a small, sealed envelope. It was addressed to the finder of the truth in Min-ho's handwriting. She found it in his personal effects after he died. He must have written it when he was ill. She kept it, too afraid to open it. "She gave it to me for you." Maya opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of expensive stationery. The handwriting was elegant, firm. It read, "To whoever uncovers this, know that my sin was pride, not malice. I built an empire but could not build a son, so I procured one, thinking I could shape a better legacy than biology would allow. I doomed my child to a life of questioning his very essence. For that I am eternally sorry. Do not blame my wife. The arrogance was mine alone. If you read this, the lie is over. I can only hope my Yi Hyan, in truth, builds something real. And to you who found this, thank you for freeing him." It was signed Kang Min-ho. Maya handed the letter back to Yi Hyan. He read it, his eyes glistening. He didn't cry. He folded it and put it in his pocket. "He was always better with words than with honesty," Yi Hyan said, "but at least he knew it was wrong." That was the final, surprising truth. The architect of the deception had lived with the weight of it and had left an apology in a drawer, knowing one day it would be found. It didn't forgive anything, but it completed the story. Yi Hyan stood to leave. "It's Tuesday," he said. "I know a place that makes decent jjajangmyeon, not as good as jollof rice, I'm sure, but if you're not busy." Maya smiled. "A working lunch, Mr. Kang?" "Just Yi Hyan," he said. "And no, just lunch." She grabbed her jacket. The two of them, the disinherited heir and the cleaner-turned-director, walked out of the office building not into a fairy tale, but into the ordinary, complicated sunlight of a Seoul afternoon. The empire was gone. The truth remained. And for the first time in 34 years, everyone involved could finally build something on a foundation that was real. So what remains after a dynasty falls? Not ruins, but reckonings. The story of the wedding collapse wasn't about a single DNA test. It was about the architecture of a lie, how it was designed, maintained, and defended across generations, until the weight of it became too great for one person to carry alone. Kang Min-ho built a fortress of deceit to protect his pride. His wife guarded it out of love and fear. A nurse lived in its shadow, and a doctor built his life in ignorance of its foundations. And a billionaire heir lived his entire life in a beautifully furnished room, never knowing the walls were made of paper. Then a woman with a dustpan and a debt walked in, and with the simple, terrifying act of speaking a truth everyone else had agreed to ignore, she brought the whole structure down. But here is the final, lingering question. In a world where at home DNA kits reveal millions of family secrets every year, where legacy and lineage are still the bedrock of vast fortunes, how many other rooms are there? How many other beautifully constructed lives are waiting for a single, unexpected draft to reveal their fragile core? The Kang Empire is now a foundation. Yi Hyan builds houses. Maya audits ledgers. Lee Hairai tends a small garden. Dr. Park mends hearts, including perhaps his own. They are all free of the lie, but they are also forever marked by it. They are the aftermath. The ultimate irony is that the legacy Kang Min-ho so desperately wanted, a lasting name, was achieved not through the lie, but through its spectacular unraveling. We remember the story not because of the empire he built, but because of the truth he buried. In the end, the cleaner with the folded paper didn't destroy a family, she forced it to become real. And in doing so, she asked all of us a very simple, very dangerous question. What are the walls of your life made of? And what would you do if you found out they were never really there? If you want more stories that dig into the hidden architectures of power, identity, and the secrets that shape our world, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.